Good afternoon. This is Steve Kime with the City of Enid, with the Enid Television Network. We have a gorgeous day in Oklahoma. It's a September fall day, and to even more of a treat, a B-29 shows up. Can you imagine that? We're at the Woodring Regional Airport here outside of Enid, Oklahoma, and my special guest, I've already forgot the title, but it's, I think, Aircraft Commander. Is that right? This is David Oliver?
Yeah.
Did I get the title right?
You got it right, because that's what the pilot who flew in the left seat would have been called during World War II.
Can I call you David? Is that all right? Or
Absolutely,
it does? Okay,
yeah.
all right. I want to make sure everything is official.
You can call me Hey You, and I'll turn around.
Well, thank you. Well, as you can see in our backdrop, we have got a gorgeous B-29 behind us. As a matter of fact, it's the closest that I've been to a B-29, Fifi. I understand it's built in 1944, but for someone who doesn't really know a lot about flying, David, tell us what it is to take off, fly, and land this thing, in layman's terms.
Well, it's a piece of history, obviously. And at the same time, we operate it with some new standards and things like that, the way we operate as a crew. But we also really keep the heritage of how the crews work together. It was a crew of 11 men that were together in this airplane for a long time, sometimes missions upwards of 18 hours. So you got to remember the history for sure, and that's the only way to operate it.
I think my association with the B-29 is World War II. That'd be correct, right?
Yes, it was also used into Korea, and up in the 1950s, where most of them became obsolete.
So tell us about, what's the speed? Looks pretty heavy to me. What's the speed to get this thing off the ground?
Well, it's probably slow by today's standards of our jet aircraft, but you got to remember, rewind history a little bit, that we went into World War I and they were dropping bombs out of biplanes, and nobody thought the airplane was really that powerful. Everybody thought the battleship was the biggest. And then the B-17 came along, and Boeing built an airplane which served in Europe and was very successful. But you got a guy who's standing in an open window kind of firing a gun. Well, this was the next iteration of that. It's faster, it was higher, went about 200, 300 miles an hour, and it would be pressurized, so the crew was in comfort, and they could fly high, upwards of 30,000 feet. And it was used for long-range bombing, so they would actually fly from the Mariana Islands all the way about 2,000 miles to the Japanese mainland, where it was used in the Pacific.
Well, again, if you have any interest in history at all, a B-29 or a B-17 or a B-25, I guess, would really come to mind for individuals. You see the mammoth size on this. Does it ever feel like it's going to get off the ground when you're taking off?
Well, luckily, she's lost weight over the years, so a lot of the armor plating that's kind of hidden inside the belly we've taken out to operate it at lower weights, which makes it a safer airplane. But it's big. It's big. We're sometimes upwards of about 100,000 pounds. And during the war, they flew about 140,000 pounds. So there's no doubt. You look at it, you walk out on the ramp, it's a big airplane.
You mentioned earlier that there was a crew of 11, is that right? Now, the crew that you have today, what's the number that you have to fly this plane from city to city?
Sure. Well, it takes a minimum of 6 people under our configuration just to fly it anywhere. And we actually travel about 14 or 16 crew members for the entire Air Power History Tour to support doing tours, allowing people to get up close and climb inside the cockpit and to hear docent stories and things like that from some of our veterans. So we travel with a good crew. They're all volunteer. They're all great guys and gals who support the organization Commemorative Air Force.
Well, David, we're standing in front of a massive sign on this aircraft, the B-29. It says Fifi. Can you kind of give us just an overview of where did Fifi come from, the naming of that?
Well, the joke is actually a young kid walked up one time and said, "When's F1 going to fly?" So it is Fifi, and actually it was named for a World War II veteran who was instrumental during the B-29 program when it was coming into fruition during World War II, the engineering side. And he became a benefactor of the aircraft later in the 70s when the Commemorative Air Force operated it, and his wife's name was Fifi. And so the crews actually named it in his honor, the name Fifi, and surprised him. So that's how we came about that name.
And so the advice there is always name things after your girlfriend or your wife, right? That's the safest thing to do?
That's correct. And now, we wouldn't even dream about doing anything other than Fifi on the side, and that's how she's always been called and known as.
Well, David, I don't believe you or I know, was born by 1944, so this is definitely a piece of history. How does that make you feel being a pilot to be able to be commanding something like this? It's got to be a special place in your pilot's life, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very special honor, there's no doubt about it, and a big responsibility. There are only a few of us who really fly as that aircraft commander spot. We're always constantly training, the next generation to take our place, so that one day if I'm not flying it, somebody else is, so we keep it going for many generations to come to tell that story.
Our special guest today is the Aircraft Commander, David Oliver. David, welcome to Enid.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you bringing Fifi.
Absolutely.
Thank you. My special guest now is the Assistant Crew Chief, Don Thurston. Don, welcome to Enid. It's good to have you. I noticed you just stepped out of your commuter here, Fifi.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the B-29 and what's it like to be the crew chief?
Well, the B-29, as you know, was a very rare airplane even during the war. They only built 4,000 of them. And right now this is the only one flying, so there's only 3 of us in the world that are actually crew chiefs on a B-29 at the moment. It's a lot of work. We're continually inspecting, tweaking, fixing.
And the fact that I believe the research that I read that this one was built in 1944, so it's looking pretty good for 70 years old. Now, does this thing go in a garage at night?
In Fort Worth, where she's based, we have a hangar that she lives in. Out on the road, nobody has a hangar big enough.
What does it feel to be, as a crew chief, part of this history that's flying from city to city? It's got to be a special feeling.
It's pretty amazing, really. When you of course, the flying is fun, you know, but then you get down and you actually start to meet the veterans who flew the airplanes, who worked on the airplanes, and hear their stories. And it's just an irreplaceable experience. I mean, there's nothing like that.
Well, you came up from Oklahoma City on this. I guess the flight was pretty smooth. We have a gorgeous September day here in Enid. Tell us a little bit about these props. They're huge. They've got 4 props, 4 engines. Can you tell us anything about the size of these engines?
They're Curtiss-Wright 3350s, which is the same model engine that was originally on the airplane. These are put together from later versions. We've used some C-119 parts, some Skyraider parts, and created an engine that's right now unique to the B-29, to this airplane.
You know, when I stand here on the tarmac, if you will, and I look at the size of this plane, I'm thinking, how in the world does it get up in the air? There's a lot of weight here, right? Do you have any ballpark figure how much this B-29 weighs?
Empty weight is 65,000 and a few hundred. We took off this morning to come here at 82,000. 82,000.
Boy, that's heavy luggage on your part, right? A few bags. We were able to go up inside the cockpit and look at the, I guess, the nose of the plane. You can tell how well versed I am in planes. I apologize for that, folks. But you look out at that cockpit and you just think, boy, if it could only talk, the stories it could tell.
It would be very interesting. This airplane was only used as a trainer. It never left the States because it was they took delivery so late in the war.
Sure.
I tell people it was probably abused more than the ones were shot at, because new pilots learned to fly in this airplane. And
what is something that is unique about B-29s that is really not discussed? Maybe not this particular Fifi, but is there any unique characteristic about a B-29 that isn't talked about much?
Something a lot of people don't know, and it wasn't unique to this airplane. It was used on some of the larger cargo planes and the B-36, is that the pilots don't really control the engines. The flight engineer starts them, runs them up, runs the throttles in flight, monitors all the gauges. The pilot gets manifold pressure and RPM, that's it. And the co-pilot gets a hydraulic pressure gauge. Other than that, the flight engineer is responsible for the operation of the aircraft.
So you heard that first. The pilot really isn't flying this thing? No.
Well, he flies it. I like to say he points the nose the direction he wants it to go.
He's just not necessarily controlling the engine, starting them up at all.
They'll just call out for a power setting change, and the flight engineer makes all the changes.
Don Thurston's our special guest today here at Woodring Regional Airport. As Fifi, the B-29, comes to visit Enid, Oklahoma. Well, we made it inside Fifi. We're inside B-29 that just landed a few moments ago at Woodring Regional Airport, and the airport director happened to be inside the cockpit, so why not come visit to Dan Onosorge, Ono as we know him. Ono, congratulations. Looks like the B-29 has landed. What does this mean for Woodring Airport?
First of all, this is outstanding. This is really neat being inside this thing. But for Woodring, what an opportunity to bring a vintage World War II aircraft here for the public to take a look at. We have not had, since I've been out here, an aircraft this large out here. We've had a B-17, a B-24, and this is really something.
When we were in your office a few moments ago, we heard kind of this thunder in the sky as it was going by, and we kind of looked out the window and go, yep, there she is. It really is a sight to come out here and see the magnificent structure of this B-29. It's huge.
It is absolutely huge. I could not get another aircraft out here beside it. It's about 145 feet wide, about 140 to 150 feet long. I don't know exact dimensions, but she is a large beast, and I'm sure glad we had it on our side.
Well, not airports are able to host a B-29, B-17, and the list goes on, but Woodring was able to do so. And we know a lot of people from outside of Enid and Garfield County would come and see Fifi and just kind of relive World War II, if you will, and maybe the 1950s. Overall, what does this do to the image of the airport, Ono, that a B-29, an event like this for 3 days, can come to your airport?
Well, it continues to put us on the map. Woodring Regional Airport is here for the public. It's a city airport, and it's a regional business airport, but we like to bring things like this, fly-ins every once in a while, so that the general public can come out here and get a taste of aviation.
That's Dan Onosorge, our airport director here at Woodring Regional Airport, inside Fifi, inside B-29. Is that the driver's seat, or am I in the driver's seat?
You're in the pilot seat. I'm in the co-pilot seat.
Oh, I like that. So I'm the pilot for just a moment. Oh no, thanks for your time. It's good seeing you.
Roger that. Enjoyed it.
Again, we're visiting with Don Thurston, the crew chief here with Fifi, B-29. And Don, I just thought it was you and me talking, but I understand there's 4 women with us in the background.
Yes.
And off camera a few moments ago, I kind of looked up and I go, Ingrid, and this is Mitzi behind me. And we got 2 more on the other side. What's the story about these names on these engines?
Well, we have Mitzi, Ingrid, Rita, and Betty, and they're actually named after some of the pinup girls of the 1940s. Ingrid Bergman, Mitzi Gaynor, Rita Hayworth, and Betty Grable.
All right. Is that customary on all B-29s to do? I think we're all familiar with the special name on the side of the plane, but the engines, did they name those as well?
I'm not sure if they did during the war or not. I've never seen photos of one with names on the engines.
Well, we always try to be informative in the programs, and now we know that these engines have 4 ladies' names, and they're very special names. So, Don, again, you've been a wealth of information. Thanks for sharing with us about Fifi and the B-29, and again, thanks for coming to Enid.
Well, thank you for your hospitality here. We appreciate it.